3 minutes. 3 minutes until the quiz begins. 3 minutes. It is 4:40. Please try and access your quiz. You have 10 minutes remaining. 10 minutes remaining. Minutes. Five minutes remain. 5 minutes remain.
It might have just been right.
60 seconds remain. 60 seconds remain. We'll begin in just a couple more minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. All right, that was a very Lua heavy quiz. Yeah. In particular, there were a lot of questions aimed at a lot of those Lua foot guns, right? Lua is one of those languages that once you get into it, once you're used to it, spend some time with it, it's pretty nice, pretty simple. But when you're getting started, it can be a pain in the butt, okay? There are a few questions on the quiz I think I'm going to revisit. You might get some points back here in the next couple of days. In particular, there's a crazy one that had a very big option. Did you see that? The formatting was kind of weird on it, and it kind of hid a few of the options that you might have wanted to consider, okay? So I wouldn't worry too much if you lost points on that one, okay? You ever thought about how difficult of a challenge you're facing in this course? Game engine. You know, they don't even do that at Carnegie Mellon. They got a big game dev program, but you're not going to ask a student to make a game engine. It's crazy. Michigan State University, hour away, #1 public university for game dev. They're behind some of the private universities, but they're great. They don't have a game engines course. How could you expect students to do that? I want you to know that I appreciate and respect the challenge that you've taken on, okay? What you're doing is not easy, okay? And do not, for a moment, trick yourself into thinking that it is. It's so easy. And I know this because I was in your shoes not 9 years ago. Wasn't that long ago. It's so easy to forget how difficult these things truly are, right? You mess up a quiz, you mess up a project, you start to fall a bit behind, it feels like the world is ending. That's not the case, okay? You do the best you can. Don't worry too much about the grades, okay? And I know how impossible that is. Grades are so important, okay? I remember I felt that way 9 years ago, 494, getting wrecked. You better believe I got wrecked on 494, okay? Some of you from that class know this. At the end showcase, how'd I do? I take the grand prize? Did I win it all? No way. I was mediocre. Okay? 6th place out of, I think, about 12 teams. 6th place. Dead middle. Okay? That's going to happen sometimes. All right? So, remember, this is a pre-alpha course. Hey, the balancing, those points, those grades, it's still all up in the air, okay? You look in your grade book, you see a bad grade, bad letter grade, it's fake, okay? Don't worry about it yet, all right? There could be curves coming. There's definitely extra credit coming, okay? So, I know it's hard, but for yourself, right? And because this is true, focus on what you're accomplishing. My God, you're not even a junior dev yet, and you're going to have your own engine. Okay, maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it couldn't meet all the auto graders' fairly strict demands. Let's be honest. But you're going to have that game engine, and no one's going to believe you, okay? Because no one believes me when I tell people at IGDA Ann Arbor, when I tell the Stardokians, okay? When I tell my students at Roblox, we're making game engines now. Oh, you mean you're using Unity? No, we're making Unity, right? And that's a bit of an exaggeration. Not as much as you'd think, though, okay? Not as much as you'd think. So, keep your eyes on the prize. Keep yourself focused. Get sleep if you can. I know you've got a lot of other courses to worry about, okay? Do the best you can, okay? You'll be all right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Right now, it's a pretty exciting time. Why? That finish line is just over the hill. You can see it glimmering in the sun. Doesn't it feel good? I'll tell you, like 2 nights ago when I, air quotes, finished homework 8, I'm still polishing it a tiny bit. Felt good. It felt good to have an engine that can do the things I'm about to show you today. Okay? And I never would have thought I would make an engine like that. It turns out you want to learn something really good, and you've heard this before, you want to learn something really good, you go try and teach it. Okay? I'll be honest, when I was designing this course, when I thought several years ago we should really have this course, a big part of it was, wouldn't it be awesome if our engineers had a lot of time with C++, had their own big engine that they could show off to recruiters, right? Wouldn't that be satisfying? But I'll tell you what, a little sliver, okay, maybe a little bit more than that, was because I wanted to learn it myself, okay? And so I hope you have similar satisfaction as we end and head toward the end of this course, okay? If you're a bit behind, don't panic too much, okay? Don't panic too much if your homework 7 isn't completely in yet, okay? Do the best you can. Chip away with it, okay? You get to 90%, 95%, that's a pretty darn good grade, okay? Try and get it building on the other auto graders, and then wait for that extra credit. Come in, fix things up maybe, okay? If you are a bit more behind, yeah, it's a little bit tough, but keep doing the best you can, okay? Who knows what could happen? Who knows? Okay? All right, anyone have any comments or questions on the course in general? All right, let me know what you think about these questions in the quiz, okay? Maybe if you've got some that were confusing that you want an explanation on, we'll do those on Wednesday, okay? We'll go over those really quickly. Okay, so what do we got today? Lecture 17, I've got an engine for you, and I want to show it to you, okay? This one is going to look a little familiar, all right? This is called Step Mania. In particular, Step Mania 5. This thing's been around a while. Now, you tell me if this looks a little familiar, okay? I can tell it's lagging a little bit. The sound didn't match up with my hit right there, so I could be in trouble, okay? Okay, I've never seen that menu before. Has anyone seen this engine before? This look familiar to anyone? A little bit? Just a tiny bit, right? This is just DDR. Where's Konami? Drags, yep. Okay, I think, like, you get it, right? I'm basically a pro player. This is a open source total clone, okay? Total clone of DDR, all right? And you have to wonder, okay, that raises a couple questions. When did DDR come out? When was DDR released? 1998. 1998. And not 3-4 years later, we already got a clone, an open source clone, okay? You have to wonder if maybe Konami wasn't able to get a patent or copyright or trademark, whatever, on this basic formula. You have to wonder. You have to wonder if maybe they looked at it and just wasn't big enough to care about. Or maybe Konami was just really cool in that era and liked open source. Who knows, okay? But I will say, when it comes to copywriting game design, when it comes to trying to defend IP, like game design IP, I don't know a whole lot, but I've heard many anecdotes that it's very hard to do. Okay, you can sometimes copy technology that powers some game design you've thought up, but in terms of just your hey, we're going to have some arrows going up and down, going to press them to the beat, that might be really hard to patent in the USA, okay? So maybe they simply couldn't do it. Well, this was created by Chris Danford. I know nothing about Chris. Maybe next semester I'll have a little bit more information on him. It's an open source DDR clone. Okay, there's a GitHub repository that you can check out. You can clone it, you can build it, you can mess with it if you want to. You don't have to do a clone to mess with it because we got Lua support. Okay, we got Lua support as a scripting language. Look at this footage right here. What I just showed you looks a little bit different than this. I don't think this is blindfolded. No, this is blindfolded. Look at all these options getting turned on. My goodness, my goodness. This is open source at its best. Endless series of customizations, okay?
Oh, yeah. So you guys are wondering where are the nodes and where are they going to come from? Well, there you go. There they are.
So he's reading two different scroll directions at the same exact time. While the
Half
nodes are also
going up,
spinning.
the other half going down.
And also you can't see
You can't
where
keep
the
your eyes in one place.
Because the receptors are gone as well.
Yeah, he's got to kind of take a gander at where they are.
Also,
You can kind of see
you notice
some
that
very
some
easily,
notes
but
are like diagonals. You notice that? Oh, goodness. Okay. This is the kind of crazy business that happens at AGDQ, okay? Awesome games done quick. Speedrunning competition. Speedrunning festival. Really good stuff. This is a, so scripting, right? There are interesting Lua APIs that use terminology, actor terminology, to basically allow you to customize the different elements of the game. So you can do wild things like that if you want to. And so pretty cool example of what we're trying to do. There's a really interesting thing I noted, and I didn't have a lot of time to look into this. Originally, StepMania was GPL, right? Anyone know about the GPL license? Okay, a lot of people, they hear GPL and they go running for the woods. Okay? Get out of there, right? Throw that code in the dumpster. We can't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Why? What's up with the GPL? Some people absolutely love it. If you're in the Linux ecosystem, good chance you're a fan. GNU. What does GPL do to you? This is going to be on the next quiz, I think. Yes?
It makes everyone who uses your thing, like it requires them to also be GPL.
Yes. Well, okay, so let's say that you're building a cool product like StepMania, or a commercial version of StepMania. You're going to put this thing in the arcades, and you include StepMania in your source code, you build it, and that's GPL. What do you have to do when you're finished with that product, before you commercialize it, before you release it? What do you have to do? What do you got to do? Yes?
Just a guess, but they include it in the normal GNU like source directory.
Kinda. You have to publicly distribute your source code and all your changes, okay? In other words, the GPL is viral. If you use software that is GPL, or code that's GPL, you become GPL, and that means you become public, okay? And that's very scary for businesses. Imagine you invest tens of millions of dollars into this awesome new game that has crazy cool new technology. If you use GPL stuff, that stuff's got to get public. And the courts will force you to make that public, okay? Or you have to get rid of it and replace it with something else, okay? So that's what scares people about the GPL. We tend to prefer, in a lot of cases, people prefer the MIT license because basically it gives you total freedom. You can do whatever you want with it, okay? You can make changes, you can publish them if you want, but you don't have to, okay? One of the reasons that, if I recall, one of the reasons that Sony didn't choose Linux for their PlayStation operating systems was because of that. You know what they chose instead? They chose a rival to Linux. From California, Northern California, it's the Berkeley software distribution, BSD. They have a license that is more permissive than the GPL. And so BSD got the nod when it came to commercial, when it came to consoles, okay? And BSD gets a lot of attention for that reason. Kind of like Linux, but with a more permissive license, okay? Anyway, yes, so they were initially GPL, but then the team, the authors, from what I read, really wanted to release StepMania, like commercially. Like, we want this thing in arcades, maybe we made a bad choice. Well, what they did was they went and they found all the contributors who had contributed source code, and they got everyone's permission to convert to, I think they're MIT now. Yeah, they converted to MIT. Good thing they, I guess they did that pretty quickly, because as soon as you got tons of contributors, it's like I got 99 of my 100 contributors who have said yes, but Jimbo, I cannot find him. He's gone off the grid. We don't know where he's at, so we're stuck. Oh no, right? I think Wolverine Soft has had to do this once or twice. And it's never that fun, okay? So you got to be careful with that license. In the Groove, you've probably seen this at arcades. This is, it's a DDR clone. Sometimes it's got the diagonal ones going, okay? I'm not sure if we can find any images of that, but they're out there. It's kind of like we got DDR at home, okay? But it's pretty good. All right, so good stuff. Use concept of actors. As you can see right here, they have an in-engine, like basically an in-game beat map editor. So you can go in, you can start editing your beat maps. I've never done this, but I imagine it's very time-consuming work, but potentially just incredibly rewarding when you do get it done, okay? So, very cool engine, and of course this one is very bespoke. You're not going to make RPG, probably. Be interesting to get an RPG combined with a rhythm game. I wonder if that's been done. I wonder how many people have tried it. But this is going to be a rhythm-based game you're making, okay? And if you're not making that, you gotta choose a different engine. Okay. Homework 8 is the final auto-graded assignment in this course. You are so close. You're so close. I promised you the exam would be a bit easier, okay? As a result of all the hard work you're doing on these projects. I'm going to stick to that, okay? I'm going to try and aim for quiz difficulty minus, okay? So a little bit under the quiz. If the quizzes have been really difficult, you're thinking, oh no. But you're going to have a lot more time. Unfortunately, you won't have open book, all right? So it's going to be closed book. I think our grading is going to be quite a bit easier on you as a result of that, okay? So I can't guarantee you a good balance on that exam, okay? It's the first one I've ever designed in my life. But we're going to give it a shot, okay? We're going to try and make it reasonable for you. If you've been keeping up on the assignments, if you're relatively close, if you're hanging in there, I hope this exam won't be too bad for you, okay? And if it ends up being overly hard, that curve's going to come in, okay? Or that scale at the end of the semester. Maybe just the extra credit of the game jams will get much bigger. I don't know. We'll make it work, okay? All right. Okay, so look forward to that. This is the end of the tunnel, okay? Next week, we're going to talk about data-oriented design. This is something that will show up a bit in a very light form on the exam and on your quiz, but it's going to be pretty light, okay? And you can continue to explore the principles we're going to cover at a high level over the summer if you want to. One question you could say is, I got this really expressive engine. You can do lots of stuff with it. Can it be faster? And the answer is going to be a definite yes, okay? So that could be an awesome goal for you over the summer if you want to. If any of you want to see or look at this engine again, okay? Hopefully you do. Give it a bit of time, and that fondness will return. You've done an incredible thing, okay? All right. How did Homework 7 go? I know not everyone is finished with it. Feedback online has been that it takes a long time, but it's kind of cool. Hopefully that's the case. Over time, as the test cases get better, as the spec gets better, hopefully it'll take less time. Be less burdensome. You'll get more bang for your buck. One really difficult thing about spec design, and then we'll really get into it, all these tangents. One really difficult thing about spec design is that you have to be very careful. No line is free, okay? Every line you put into the spec has a chance of being too much or distracting the student. And if you turn this thing into a novel, yeah, you can have absolutely everything just nailed down completely. The problem is students are going to start missing stuff just because there's too much to read. It's like, yes, the requirement was listed, but it was 2 pages ago, and so we missed it. Oh. So it's a very kind of difficult balancing act. And it reminds me so much of game design, right? You have to be very careful. You have to include just enough guidance so your players can get through the level, can solve the puzzle. But you include too much, you might distract them. You include too much, you might remove all the satisfaction. it's not quite a perfect match for designing a spec. It's not that far off, okay? I've told you many times, game design is education, simply approached from more of an entertainment and engagement perspective than an academic one, okay? All right, let's go ahead and keep going. One thing I noticed was that a lot of you didn't, yes, a lot of submissions started coming in after very long gaps, like a couple days ago, which will make things harder. And at first I was a bit frustrated at this, but you know what? Like, you got other courses, don't you? You got other fish to fry, so I can't blame you. I can't blame you, but I will reiterate, try and take a peek, okay? Nibble away at your assignments. At the very least, maybe don't make it super far, but at the very least, they'll give you a more accurate feel for, okay, how much time do I really need for this? Can I start 2 days ahead of the deadline, or should I really try and start 4, okay? You'll get a better feel the sooner you look. I know it's scary. One of my big issues is like when I really don't want to do something, when I'm kind of fearful of an assignment, like, can I get it done? I don't know, a little bit nervous about it. I won't look at it till it's too late. In reality, the way to deal with this is to look at it as early as possible when you still have options, okay? So anyway, something to keep in mind. All right, this is, this is a cool assignment. I really like homework 7, but I don't know, maybe I like this one more, okay? There's life that gets breathed into your engine when you add a physics engine. Okay? So much power and personality, entropy. Who knows what could happen? If you felt that this shoot 'em up, this shmup, this cute 'em up was a bit stiff. Yeah, it's a bit stiff, it's a bit generic, all right? Welcome to the world of physics, where anything can happen. Boxes can go flying from across the room, and you didn't even know. An enemy can throw your character. You don't know where you're gonna land. It's crazy. How many of you remember loving the ragdoll effect the first time you saw it in the game? You're playing some multiplayer, all of a sudden, and your ragdoll falls, and then it starts tumbling down a hill, and you're like, whoa, I don't even feel bad, right? It's cool, right? There's a lot of just pure entertainment value you get out of just kind of watching things tumble. And I mean, now that I think of this, like, remember, how many times have you, like, you've seen, like, really young toddlers and they're playing with blocks and the thing falls over or they whack it and they're just, yeah, right? It seems almost biological that we enjoy seeing entropy. We enjoy seeing things tumble, right? And seeing what will happen, okay? And so, welcome to that world. Welcome to that world. I'm not sure how many of you will start this, but maybe by Wednesday you'll have started, so we want to give you a good foundation today, okay? And then we'll finish up that foundation on Wednesday. We have had one submission on homework 8. One submission. You know who you are. It didn't compile, but it's still exciting. We love to see that. All right, we're hyped already, okay? A warning, we've not had anyone go through this assignment. So Nikhil is very fast and amazing, but the course just caught up to my design speed, okay? And so it finished 2 days ago. Like, that's not enough time for Nikhil to verify stuff. There could be some friction on this, and I hope you'll please have patience. I really, really appreciate it. And know what that's going to do for future semesters, okay? Things are going to be really nice for all the people who come after you, okay? I know that's kind of cold comfort, but I really appreciate it, and you should know that. All right, let's talk about physics middleware, okay? This is Box 2D, and this is just kind of fun to watch, okay? Just watch things tumble. You've got different shapes. You've got some blocks that are static and they can't move. You've got others that are dynamic and they just fall and flow over each other. It's kind of mesmerizing, all right? Especially when it's your engine. And if this looks sloppy, consider that you can really refine this. You can take these physics. Often, a big part of making a game like this is kind of taking the physics engine and convincing it to be a little bit less crazy. Okay? You have to wrangle it a little bit. So we want to give our users a way to enable physics like this, but we also want to give them a ton of options so they can tweak and experiment. And it's tough because you want to give them tons of options, but the more you give them, the more complicated this all gets. Okay? You want to have a nice, simple engine. It's easy to use. you better be darn careful. You better choose some good defaults. I think we chose some pretty good ones. I guess we'll find out, though. All right, making this took me almost no time at all. Like, I think 30 minutes to make this, okay? Which I don't think are too bad. We got a lot of things going on here, right? We've got this character whose physics we can control with Lua, with inputs. We got jumping. That yellow block right there is basically a spring pad. It detects that the player has touched it. It launches the player, okay? And over here, you see it barely, but there are these triggers. There are these sensors. They're called Box 2D. You see the flag, the checkered flag? When you touch that, it ends the game, okay? It tells you your time. And so, not too bad. If you want something more deluxe, more sophisticated, a bit more artistic, okay? Limbo, has anyone played it? Oh, yeah. This is a really fantastic game. I remember playing this in, like, high school. And it was fantastic. The atmosphere incredible, and it was just juicy. Okay? And when you jump onto the boat, right? You jump onto the boat, and you can see this really nice kind of floating, right? It kind of goes down right into the water, but then it comes back up. The angle is changing. The chain breaks. You flow across. It just makes everything feel alive. Okay? So, that's where we're at. You'll notice the name changed over here. Okay, we're ending at the physics-oriented 2D engine now. Okay, and that's where we're going. We're almost there. You made it. All right? And if you're not quite there, you're on the way. You're almost there. Okay? Physics engines, the Box 2D engine is our target. Okay, this is an amazing engine. Tons of stuff in so many games. Limbo, but also Angry Birds. This is when I first heard Box 2D for the first time. Angry Birds. It was used in Box 2D. Fantastic engine. And it really took off from there. If you want 3D, over the summer, you're going to convert this into a 3D engine. Woo. All right, we need a whole nother class for that, by the way. PhysX by NVIDIA is an open source engine. You can go to the GitHub if you want to. It's fantastic, right? It was used early on. It was used in games like Batman, Arkham Asylum, where it was just spectacular. Its rival is the Havoc engine. Let me go ahead and play for you this trailer. Right? Very creepy stuff, but very intriguing. This, I think, is the engine that was used on popular games like Halo 3, and it's been around for a very long time. It's something of an industry standard. It is like the paid edition, if you want like a paid version, maybe a little bit more souped-up version of NVIDIA's PhysX. It's pretty cool that devs have a free option, though, in PhysX. Though I do think maybe it works best on NVIDIA GPUs, and that's why NVIDIA makes it, okay? Anyway, physics is such a big part of modern engines that you can see it right there. Okay, let's zoom in, all right? We got a rigid body component, okay? A component literally called rigid body, and then Unity also gives you separate components to represent, like, okay, you want something that's physicsy. You want this thing to have physics, but is that like a box? Should that thing collide like a circle or a capsule, pill, or a much more expensive mesh kind of collision? And so these two kinds of components are how you allow the user to decide that, okay? And there are quite a few properties in there. One of those, you see the is trigger. Okay, that's a little familiar, all right? Not to take you back to painful times, but you remember homework 6, okay? The AABB mines, big pain in the butt, okay? We're going to say, you know what? We're going to have Box 2D deal with that from now on, okay? So there you go, right? And you can get some really cool results. This is Unity, a gift by Mark Hewitt, right? This uses joints, it uses rigid bodies, it uses dynamic ones, it uses static ones, right? Very fun stuff. You can imagine lots of interesting game design concepts become possible when you have something like this. And it's just a few clicks. You don't need to understand physics deeply to get something like this, all right, if you're the user. Okay, and if you want to make your own physics engine, I'll tell you, you're looking at several new courses. Okay, not one, maybe even not two. Okay, wouldn't that be a cool course in the physics department? It'd be kind of tough to build people up to that, though, because that would be very intense, I think. Rigid body, okay? Rigid body is the star of homework 8, all right? It is the star. And when we say rigid body, we mean a rigid, as in non-deformable. Okay, you can't squish this thing, all right? Or deform it or rip its mesh apart and change it. And it is a physics body. So it experiences velocity and friction and gravity and stuff like that. It can run into other stuff, potentially, all right? Very, very common component in engines. There it is in Unity. In Unreal, it's called the static mesh component. And if you've taken 440, the Unreal Engine XR course, you know that the static mesh component is just a beast. It does a lot of things. One of those things is physics, okay? Godot named their component rigid body as well, okay? So it's a pretty common phrase. It's typically implemented in C++, okay? In Unity, many components, you write them, you can read their C# source code, but it's so important that rigid bodies run quickly that usually it's C++. And a big part of this homework is going to be a pretty interesting architectural change for you. Okay, you're used to Lua components now, but guess what? Now you've got C++ components mixed in as well, all right? The good news is that if you've got a kind of well-architected, organized code base, not as painful as you might think, okay? This is what's going to happen. You're going to look into your component types for your game, all right? You got one sprite render Lua component, but you're going to look into the seed file and say, well, wait a second. Rigid body, are you kidding me? That's not a component. It is now. It's built in, okay? We don't need any Lua anymore, all right? So that's going to be an interesting architectural challenge for you. I hope you enjoy it. If your code base is feeling a little bit nasty, you might want to refactor a tiny bit. Okay, do some experiments. Whenever you refactor, resubmit to make sure you haven't broken anything. If you've broken stuff, don't be afraid to revert, okay? That's why you have test-driven development, so you can do those kind of things without too much risk, okay? All right, rigid body, it's built in, okay? My tip for you is you want to get that C++ component, that object, that C++ instance of a C++ class, you want to get that thing into a Lua ref as soon as you can. As soon as it's in a Lua ref, you can start treating it the same way that you currently do with your Lua components, okay? That's going to be really nice for you. Maybe not the fastest, but probably the most elegant in terms of keeping your code base maintainable, manageable, okay? The staff solution, not particularly concerned with speed on this one, okay? We do a few things to speed us up, but we don't go crazy, okay? Focus on maintainability and elegance first on this one, all right? Okay, your C++ object, when you put it into a Lua ref, will become a new type in Lua called user data. You can click that link to learn more about it, but basically it's kind of like a more limited table, okay? Kind of like a more limited table. Certain things work a little bit differently, like inheritance on user datas. I encourage you to explore the documentation a little bit. It's not too bad, okay? Not too bad at all. Most of the things that you can do with a normal Lua table, you can do with the user data as well, so long as you set the variables up and the functions up the way you need to, okay? Okay, this is the final standard homework, and we've got some very convenient features found in many engines that are missing. So there are a few side dishes on this homework, okay? We've got onDestroy, all right? It's been missing. Any Unity fans notice that? We got onStart, we got onUpdate, we got onLateUpdate. What are we missing? Oh, it's onDestroy, okay? I thought homework 7 was getting kind of spicy, all right? Kind of gnarly. So we've moved onDestroy to homework 8. This is really nice because when your rigid body component goes away, you need to do some logic. You need to do some logic that gets rid of the underlying box2D body. Okay, unregisters it. You got to clean that up, otherwise you can run into big issues. So onDestroy is going to be here. You write onDestroy, this thing gets called when your component gets destroyed. That can be when your remove component function is used on an actor. That can also be when actor.destroy is used. Okay? You're going to have to call that. Okay? The test cases on this one aren't too intense, so I think you do have some flexibility, especially because this is the final auto-graded engine assignment. Okay? So hopefully not too bad. What about pub sub and event bus? All right? This is a fan favorite design pattern from 494. We'll talk about it a bit more on Wednesday. But you're going to implement your very own pub sub and event bus. What this means is that instead of, you know how currently when we want two components or two actors to talk, how do they do that? Well, usually they use something like actor.find and then like get component. And then they can start calling functions and messing with other components, communicating with them, right? That's kind of nasty, actually. That's sometimes regarded as a code smell. You're coupling your component types to each other, and that can create some nasty dependencies, and it gets real spaghetti real fast, okay? One way you can fight against that is via the pub-sub approach, okay? The pub-sub design pattern. This is the idea that sometimes our component wants to subscribe to a certain type of event, okay? And we want our self.onDamageTaken event, our function, to process that event if it comes through, okay? So right here, for instance, hey, if some damage has been taken, we want to take note of how much, and we want to print that information. Maybe our HUD wants to do that so it can show the damage log, the battle log to our players, okay? The player, when it notices that it has taken damage, will do something like event.publish. And it publishes what kind of event? Hey, the damage taken event. What do you know? That's the one we subscribed to, okay? So by publishing this damage taken event, we're going to call this, okay? We're going to call this function. It's going to run, and it's going to get this object. So we know which actor took damage, and we know how much damage got taken, okay? Notice that in both of these cases, the HUD doesn't have any reference at all to the player. And the player doesn't know about or care about the HUD. We have two components that are communicating, and yet they don't know or care about each other. And that's called decoupling. And that can be very powerful. It can also be abused a bit, okay? So be careful, all right? Wolverine Soft Studio members have seen some stuff, okay? When you go too all in on your pub sub, your event bus. Anyway, it's powerful stuff. You're going to implement that. It's not too bad. The assignment spec will help you out a bit, okay? What about raycasting? Raycasting is when you actually cast a ray through your physics world to ask this question: what is there? In this example right here, we have this actor. And every frame, we're doing a cast to the right to find out what objects are there and what do we hit. In this case, we hit this object here, that object there. We're not shooting. Oh, actually, this object can't be hit because it is I think it is a sensor or something like that. Or it doesn't have any collider on it, so it can't be hit, okay? This is super useful. Imagine this. We want to know if our player is on the ground or not. How do we do it? Well, you could just try and detect if you've touched the ground, or you can raycast downward, right underneath your boots. And if you find a piece of ground there, you're on the ground. You could jump, okay? If you don't find anything there, you're in midair, no jumping allowed, okay? So raycasting, very fun and very useful. The way it's implemented in Box 2D is a little bit funky, okay? But again, the spec should help you there. And here's the code. This is what this kind of looks like, okay? What you're basically doing is getting the right vector, the local right vector coming out of this actor. Basically, the vector that points this way, 2D vector. You're using that vector to say, hey, I want to create a ray at my current position. I want to shoot right, and I want to go 4 distance. This returns a results table. You can iterate through this results table to find all the things you hit. And we're spawning a red X there, and that's how it be, okay? All right, so pretty cool stuff. Some tips for you. You are so close to being done, all right? Hang in there. Do the best you can, okay? The final 2 and hopefully even 3 weeks of this course, we're going to try and make it pretty nice, okay? Chillaxing a little bit, hopefully. The sprint, the finish line is there, so sprint as much as you can. Put in a good effort, you'll be all right, okay? Start early if you can. The difficulty of this assignment, I'm guessing it's probably going to be largely determined by kind of the quality of your code base, okay? Nikhil, you saw in discussion, Nikhil saying, Austin, your 20-hour estimate, it's way too high. I did this at 10. Yeah, right? That's 5 hours a week. Not bad. Nikhil is an OP guy, all right? He's a good programmer, good with a capital G. So certain things, certain improvements, may be a bit easier for him in his nice code base, okay? For me, maybe I'm getting a little bit, I'm getting a little bit slow, or I'm struggling a little bit. Hey, I had to design the whole thing, okay? So it took me a while. And it took me, I think, more like 20 hours or so, okay? But actually, I'm not sure if that's accurate as well. I think that might be a bit high, because I spent a ton of that time making test cases and trying to figure out what all the API design should be, okay? That's not easy, as you'll find out in a couple of weeks. The autograder off date is in 3 weeks. We must turn the autograder off at that point, because you need to have a finished engine, right? Wherever you're at, you got to have a finished engine so you can do those final couple assignments, adding on new stuff. We don't want to see you neglecting those final 2 big point assignments because you're behind, okay? So do what you can to get everything done, your engine as advanced as possible. Within 3 weeks, you'll be good, okay? Exam is in 3 weeks, okay? And we're going to spend an entire week trying to help you prepare for that. So you don't need to start studying now, but it wouldn't be a terrible idea, okay? Go back through your quiz, remind yourself, enjoy your engine. Take an hour if you can and make a game. That might be one of the best ways to get a good feel for what you're going to need on the exam, okay? All right. Please be careful if you're too far behind. If you're a little bit behind, no big deal. But if you're very far behind, like you might be forced to choose between finishing your homeworks and prepping for the exam. Exam probably not going to be super difficult, but you're still going to have to study, okay? It's not going to be a complete cakewalk either. But hopefully if you're doing really well on the assignments, you're going to be just fine. If you're only a little bit behind, you're probably going to be just fine as well, okay? Your engine is going to be very capable when you finish this assignment, okay? And at the game jam, you're going to see. Did you see who got the controls working in their engine already? The controller support. We got a student in the Discord, I can't remember exactly who got controller support already in their engine. Can you believe it? Oh my goodness. That was, whew. All right. So it's very impressive stuff. I hope to see more of that. Absolutely incredible. All right. I'm hyped. Monogame and Pygame do not have a built-in physics engine. Love2D actually does, okay? And so your engine in some ways will be more advanced or more featureful in some tiny ways than some of these classic, well-respected engines, all right? So look forward to that. Start thinking of your custom features, okay? Don't go too ambitious, but also don't go too small either, all right? Okay, any questions on this homework? All right, I think you're going to like it. Try and get in there as early as you can. Nothing makes these homeworks more stressful, more nasty than if you run out of time, okay? That just doesn't feel good. All right, let's talk about Box 2D. We got about 15 minutes left. Hopefully I can get you through some of the ideas in Box 2D. Maybe we'll go just to 5 minutes or so after, and you can watch the recording if you need to. Uh-oh. Okay. Hello? Is anyone interning at Google? No? This is, you can fix this. This is your first task, okay? All right, we're just going to do it here. Okay? This is Box 2D. It is one of the most famous physics engines out there. When you say physics engine, probably going to hear Havoc or Box 2D. Maybe PhysX in third place. Created by Aaron Caddo in 2006, it was created for a GDC talk on physics. So it was an engine that was created, its genesis was in education, okay? It was open sourced a year later, and it was given the MIT license, which you know is great, okay? It was written in platform-independent C++, okay? Standard, which means it's pretty easy for the most part to build it everywhere. I did have to, do a couple updates to my makefile. It wasn't a huge deal, didn't take too much time, and I hope you'll have a similar experience. Basically, you're going to want to go for all those .cpp, those .c files in there, bring them into your compile sources. Usually it means dragging them in someplace into your visual editor, and hopefully that'll be enough, okay? And you should be pretty good. Let's see. Interesting, it's not advancing. Oh, it hasn't loaded anything. It's still loading. Okay. All right, now it loaded them all. All right. Huh. Interestingly, you can build the engine in fixed point and floating point. For more determinism, you might decide to build it in floating point. But I believe that on this engine, so long as you build it and run it on the same engine, it should be deterministic, okay? And that's what we've seen so far. Hopefully it stays that way. We don't want to end with a bunch of off by 1 pixel issues. Something to note, I posted the code in the staff solution for rendering. So if you're getting off by 1 pixel issues, or if you're nervous about it all, look at what we're doing. Look at the data types that we list in there. Hopefully you can find out the issue. There was some camera issues we were seeing on Piazza. You got to be careful about a little bit, okay? Very widespread use. If you use the 2D version of components in Unity, you're using Box 2D. You use physics in GameMaker Studio, it's Box 2D. Love 2D, yep, it has Box 2D. Even Apple is in on it, okay? Sprite Kit, Coco's 2D, using Box 2D, okay? Very popular. That is an industry standard for sure. And I think in your interviews, people will be pretty excited to hear, like, whoa, you're using Box 2D? You know about that? Right? You integrated that? Heck yeah. All right, that's super cool. Usually, that's the job you give to your senior engineers on your team because it's such an important part of your engine development process. So it's pretty cool. I can't get over it. All right, okay, let's talk about the high-level Box 2D model. You got this really cool simulation going on. All right, well, it is contained inside of what's called a B2 world, okay? A B2 world is basically a big container for all things physics. If for some reason you want to have multiple big physics simulations running at the same time, you can have multiple B2 worlds. Don't do that, okay? On this assignment, we're going to keep it simple. Your game designers have one B2 world, that's it, okay? That's all they got, all right? You give your B2 world a gravity vector, okay? In fact, you know how we've been using GLM Vec2? All right, this is going to be a little bit unfortunate, but we're switching over, okay? From now on, it's all about the B2 Vec2, okay? That is Box 2D's Vector 2, okay? So that's your first test case is building that out. You give the gravity vector to the physics world, the B2 world, and you've got physics, okay? Good stuff. But you've got nothing in your world, so you won't see anything, all right? Your B2 bodies are what actually bring stuff to life, okay? When you look at these bodies, you say to yourself, they're not all the same, though. So if we're going to create 4 B2 bodies here, we need some sort of logic or API in Box 2D to customize them. And Box 2D, of course, gives us that, okay? They give us that. Some boxes are static, others are dynamic, and there are other questions about bodies as well, like what's the position of the body? What's the gravity scale of the body? In case different bodies have different gravities. And you can see here that you can actually create a B2 body def. You can then give it different properties, like what type of body is this? Is it dynamic, which means it'll fall, right? Is it kinematic, which means it doesn't react physically to things, but you can still move it with other code. Okay, you can do warps, you can do set positions, stuff like that. Or do you want it to be static? That thing is never going to move, ever, okay, no matter what. That's obviously the one that's going to be most computationally efficient, but it's whatever the user wants. You can then determine things like gravity scale, position. This bullet one is one I'm afraid of because I think most students are going to forget about it. You need to turn that thing to true. That will give you higher quality physics in general, okay? You leave that thing off. If bullet on your body is false, you can have what's called the bulleting effect, where if you have a really fast-moving object, the physics break and it actually warps through other objects, okay? Very common to see this. And you can just fix it by setting that to true. Don't forget to do it, okay? Angular damping, okay? So when you're spinning, when you've got angular velocity, how do you slow down? All right? You then create that body, and basically, like the code here, something I wrote, but basically what it's doing is you go to your world, and there's a nice function right there. It says create body. Boom, you're done. The body's there, okay? And there you go. Yep, you've got these different properties. You can read that if you want to. Another question is, well, what if I want other properties for my body? Like I want friction. One's going to be super frictionful like sandpaper. The other one's going to be low friction like glass, like ice, okay? I'm talking about things like this. The first box is super slippery. It barely slows down, just slides right off. The second box, very frictionful, and it stops. This is a test case, by the way. The test case is going to look pretty cool, I think, in this, so long as you don't get off by 1 pixel aired, okay? Hopefully that doesn't happen too much. You can define what's called a fixture, okay? If you want to get more properties for your body, you define a fixture. This is basically, you can think of it as like a shape, okay? It's a shape, it's like a collider if you're used to Unity, okay? And you can define things like your density, okay? So how does this object react to forces? Well, that depends on its mass. You can affect the density right here. Friction, restitution, is basically a fun word for bounciness, okay? And then you can tell the body, you tell the body to create a fixture. I want you to notice something. This might be the first library you're using that is C++ and not an old crusty C library. As much as we love that old crusty C, this might feel a bit more familiar to you if you are used to C# or Java or just OOP in general, okay? So then maybe that's nice if you like that kind of stuff, okay? What about the shape, okay? We have no way right here to define if it's going to be a circle or if it's going to be a square. What do? Okay? We want to make this. We got to get some circles in here. All right, what are we going to do? Well, let's see. Uh-oh. Google failed to load again. Let's see here. It knows we're on the clock. This is come on. Hello. Woo. All right, we got him. All right. Can we maybe can we do this? No. All right, still can't do this. Okay, so you look at this code. You can look at this online later if you have to get a closer look. But your fixture definition can also include things like a shape, dot shape. And dot shape is basically a reference that you can hook up to a B2 shape object. And here we have B2 polygon shape, box shape. We can set as box and then give it a height and a width, and we can make that work, okay? It turns into a box now. Cool, okay? You can also make that a circle, B2 circle shape if you want to. You'll get a circle. You got a nice little radius property now, okay, that you can edit to make that circle bigger or smaller or whatever, okay? Here's kind of a high-level way to think of a lot of this. You've got a B2 world that encompasses everything in your simulation, okay? We got loading issues. Brutal. I wonder if I was in Chrome, Google would give me a slightly better time, okay? One thing to note is that you need to step your B2 world every frame, okay? Your physics world does not advance. It doesn't update unless you call a function called physics or B2 world step, okay? You call that, you need to give it exactly these things, okay? Give it these things, you'll be good. Give it something else, and we're in big trouble, all right? You're going to diverge from us almost immediately. I wonder if maybe just this tab is cursed right now. Any luck? You can tell that it's got up to slide 42 cached. Yeah, it's not a... one interesting thing, it looks like I'm going to be back in China doing a camp this summer. And Google struggling in USA. Google's going to be in big trouble. My Google slides are toast when I get to Shanghai, I think. Going to have to download them ahead of time. All right. Okay. So B2 world, right? If you want to have things actually in that world that are simulating, like boxes, circles, whatever, you need a bunch of B2 bodies, okay? These are basically the equivalent of a rigid body, okay? Inside of these bodies are B2 fixtures, and this basically gives you more information about what the body is, like what shape it is, how it collides, if it's a trigger versus a collider, okay? Lots of good stuff. Does anyone have any questions while I spam this? No? It's pretty fun stuff. We're getting trolled here pretty hard, but maybe you can watch this a little bit later after, maybe we can keep recording. Maybe we'll just have to finish this up on Wednesday. Not the end of the world. In general, Box 2D is extremely well understood. Okay, there's lots of good documentation, lots of examples online, and you can get a lot of mileage out of asking AI assistants for examples, for clarification. You can find a lot of very good documentation just by, looking on Google, doing a search, all that good stuff, and you should be able to get pretty far. Okay, it looks like this is as far as we're getting though on this lecture. Okay, so we're going to end it here. Thank you so much for your efforts in this course this far. We're so close, everyone. Give it your best shot, okay? Fight the good fight. Remember what you've accomplished and what you're doing, okay? This is going to be a gem in your portfolio when you are finished. And that finish line is only a couple weeks away, all right? Have fun if you can. Start early if you can. And ask any questions, because office hours starts now, okay? We'll see you then. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you for watching the stream. Bye-bye.